I am here to call on the Electoral Commission, specifically the returning officer for the presidential election, who also happens to be the chairperson of the EC, to allow the opportunity to meet with me to rectify any anomaly identified in the nomination papers amicably. I have had a full discussion with my lawyers, and we have reviewed the document that we filed, which was just given to us today. And here's the document. It's a document that we filed. This is one of 4 copies that we filed. You see all the pages in that document. And it is only today that we have received this and had the opportunity to review them. And where anybody can call that there is a problem, there are those 2 places where I have put the sticker in all of the document. And they are not in the entire pages. They are in just some short, small sections in those 2 pages. And so, with all due respect, we believe that the issue we have here is not a matter of some fraudulent behavior on anybody's part, but an administrative or clerical matter that can be rectified quite simply, based on the evidence that I have with me, which is in here. A 5-minute discussion with Mrs. Charlotte Osei, the returning officer, will result in me being cleared to contest this December 7, 2016 election as a presidential candidate. That is all that it will take. Let me say that again, because I'm saying to you, with all that is in I am on the ballot, I'll become the next president of the Republic. I am asking the chairperson of the EC and the returning officer to let me know then we will take the legal route and go to court to seek satisfaction so that I can be on the ballot.
I heard it on the radio and I didn't get it quite right, so I made some statements that I wasn't quite happy about. Not that I said the wrong things. I assumed that they thought my details were not correct and they could not find my details. And I said that my details were all correct, and we sent it there. They were in 4 volumes, and all the 4 volumes were delivered to them. So there's no way my papers were not going to be correct. Then later on, I went on the website in the night. Then I realized that they quoted what you have quoted. Now, what had happened was that these are 420 volumes, documents. And if they found something amiss, the law is for them to let us know and amend it. They don't say it. We're here from 11 o'clock to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon that day. Nobody called us. And then there was 10 more days after that. Nobody called us. And all of a sudden we hear that 18 to 22 pages on the law that we quoted, and then 14 to 17 were not dated. Simple things like this, that we could have done it easily. We were not told about it. And then you use that and say you've disqualified us. On top of my running mate, he had filled all his forms. I double-checked it and double-checked it. It was almost similar to what he did in 2012. And he was not disqualified. So why did they disqualify him? And they said he hasn't filled in all his details. It's not correct. So we are here. We are waiting for our lawyer, and then we'll go and have a meeting with them so that they show us all the forms and where the problems were and why they did not get us to amend it like it said in the law. Even today, it's only now that they've called it that they've given us a letter for the disqualification. Only this morning. No, not this morning. Even 20 minutes ago, they called us. I've asked them to bring it in. We didn't hear. We heard it on the radio. On the radio.
So what meeting? I don't want you to. I mean, I know you don't want to preempt what is going to happen at the meeting, but you want to give us a fair idea of what the discussions that you're going to have with the EC officials.
Why? Wow. We want to see the form that he filled that was not complete. We want to know why they did not tell us to amend the documents during the period that we should have amended it. You understand what I'm saying? So also, why? Why do you do such a thing? We want to know. And then our lawyer will take it from then.
So what will be your next line of action? Your lawyer will take it from there. What exactly are you looking at?
We haven't been in yet. We'll go and talk to them. They are human beings. If they've made a mistake, of course they will rectify it. If they've made a mistake and still want to fight, then our lawyer will advise us accordingly.
Are you considering any court actions in case they tell you that they are not backing down on what they say?
Our lawyer would advise us accordingly. Once it comes to the lawyer will advise us, then we'll take his advice.
I'm here to ascertain what I heard on the news, that my application has been okayed, but the EC is demanding out-of-court settlement from our party before they will give me the green light to contest the elections. I'm also not aware of the case because I've not been served by any court writ. But from the EC's point of view, two personalities from our party has summoned the EC before High Court, challenging my eligibility as the flag bearer of our party. And EC is demanding out-of-court settlements within 4 days from our end. Then he can give me the green light to contest the elections. But we have rules and regulations governing political party activities. And per our party's constitution, the Congress is the highest decision-making body of the party. We went for a Congress last year, and 1,500 delegates from our party unanimously endorsed my candidature. So EC should have gone to court and cleared this with the court. And I don't understand why the EC is asking me, who has not been served, who is not party to the suit, to rather, do that.
So now they've given you 4 days to settle the internal wranglings within your party. If the four-day ultimatum that they've given to you elapses and you're unable to resolve the issue amicably, that means you're disqualified.
It can't be possible for these reasons. One, I don't have power over the courts to determine when they should adjudicate on this matter and come out with their verdict.
I was told I've been disqualified, and I didn't take it lightly because, first of all, this is not my first time of contesting. I contested in the 2008 elections. And the basis of my disqualification was that two people endorsed me, and those two people were involved in double or multiple registration. And my brother, how will I know that this person is involved in multiple registration? And number two, I submitted my forms on Thursday. And I remember Friday morning, the EC called some of us to come and do some corrections on the forms. And unfortunately, that two people that they were talking about, they didn't come out to, make mention of that. So how come we came to do some one or two corrections, but that one, nobody tell us that they are involved in multiple registrations, so it will affect us. And even then, the electoral law says that before maybe we will file our forms or whatever, the EC is supposed to give us the provisional voters register.
They didn't do that.
They didn't do that. So therefore, let's assume this voters register, the provisional one, was given to us. We could have cross-checked after our people have come from the various districts to do the filling of the nomination form. We should be able to cross-check, but we don't have it. So how can we cross-check and know?
So now, what's your next line of action?
My next line of action is I want to see the chairperson and the commissioners. Then maybe I tell them that this and this and that. So if at the end of the day they were able to understand my point, fine, so be it. If no, then I don't think I will just leave it like that. If I have to go to see my lawyers and...
Well. I must confess, I don't know who the last speaker was. I really don't know who the last speaker was, and they didn't put the name on the screen. So if you're at home and you can help, maybe you can send a message and tell us who the last speaker was. But whoever he was also running for president. With me in the studio right next to me, lawyer Yawopong, who is a private legal practitioner and also a lecturer at the Chartered University of Central University. The Chartered Central University. It's very important. Lawyer, you're welcome. Lovely. Looking very dapper this evening.
And you mentioned it majestically.
Chartered University. Looking very brightening up, I said. And then I have here, it's the first time, Nida, you're coming on Ni Alutebru.
Yes, this is my first time here.
So customary, we charge Ambantem for people who have come.
You rather give me
no, come to the palace. So we charge you Ambantem. So you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Nialote Brew Hammond is PPP's chairman.
National chairman. Yes.
National chairman. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, Ni, let me start with you. I don't know if I should say what happened or, it's just so many... what's happening?
What happened has already been aired to precede this questioning. We all do know that on Monday was when the EC held a press conference to disqualify a good number of us based on some reasoning that we got to know for the first time that evening. And that's where we are looking to get here to allow us to amend or alter as the CI 94 provides us. The CI provides that to all of the nominees. Regulation 9, 2, and 3. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't claim to know everything in the law, but at least what I have read, Regulation 9, 1, 2, and 3 stipulates that a nominee, when a condition is found to be invalid, ought to be given the opportunity to amend and alter the conditions, cure it, and proceed. If they are unable to cure the invalid condition within the stipulated time period, then they stand disqualified. So I will have a lawyer here, and hopefully he can throw some more light on that particular regulation that we are all hitching on. And this is what has happened in the past. In the 2008
when I got involved, and 2012 when we got involved, Farijan gave us the opportunity to amend those areas that he had found wanting. And also there's a departure from what has happened in the last 2 occurrences, where when we submit our 4 copies, we are given a copy after it's been signed by the electoral commissioner and everybody else. We are given a copy, and we stay at the EC's premises until the validation is complete, so that when an error is found, it can be cross-checked with what we are holding to see that they are the same. Unfortunately, they took all of the 4 copies away from us and made us leave the premises, only to come back after 10 days to find these discrepancies. So we don't even know where the discrepancy occurred. But that's to be decided another day. That departure is something that we also need to look. It looks like every nominee had to leave all 4 copies with the EC for that extended period of time. That ought not to happen. That in itself is compromising the integrity of what has been found.
Okay, so there's a quadruplicate form.
Yes, yes.
Now on the form, does it say that the party should keep one? I mean, you know, normally forms will say, you know, original copy, duplicate copy to him, pink copy to that, blue copy to the party. Does it say?
It doesn't state that.
Okay.
But I'm saying that in practice, in the last 2, 2012 and 2008, a copy had been given to the nominee to hold on while they verify the contents.
Okay. Now let me say condolences.
Yes, Madam Eva.
Yeah, Madam
and that's
Eva.
why I mean.
I know, condolences.
In black, and that should have been my first reference.
My wife's mentor.
To pay tribute to Madam Eva. She was a star.
No, she was.
She was someone that has worked so hard for Ghana, for Ghana's development. You know, rising to become the first female managing director of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation is no mean achievement.
No,
and you know, we've lost a gem in Ghana. Thank you.
Yeah. I know. I will speak highly of her and how she disciplined her, and you know, so many things she has learned in life through her. Even though at the time she was disciplining her, she thought she was too hard. Yeah, she thought she was too hard.
That's why hindsight is always 20/20.
You see, she was too hard, but then later on she realized that whoa. The next one was Dr. Indum had his 5 minutes with the EC today. Do you know the outcome yet? No,
I don't know the outcome yet. I did know that something of the sort was in the works, having extended the olive branch from the very beginning when we heard of the disqualification and the correspondence that ensued between them. But I don't know what has happened, because I believe that the 5 minutes was to point out the Regulation 9 that allowed us to be able to amend and alter to cure whatever condition has invalidated the nomination, which we were not given that opportunity to do within that 10 days. And I'm sure, considering that there was one Richard Asida that was involved in this discrepancy, that we could have cured that condition.
Of all the parties that have been excluded, there's a lot of sympathy for the PPP, because everyone admits that you have worked very hard, you have comported yourself very well in terms of your editing your books, showing where your monies came from, you know, and you know, you've come across as a very, very, very serious contender. Most people admit. 2 months to election, maybe a silly question, but how big a blow is this to the whole party?
Well, until we are able to cure this problem, which we believe we can, because we hitching on to Regulation 9, and that we be given that opportunity to cure. I think that if we don't succeed with the administrative relief, which Dr. Papako Sindom is seeking with the chairperson, Then as he said in his press conference, we would then head to the courts to seek redress.
Okay, let's go to the law courts and see what happens in regulation 9.
Regulation 9 has become the regulation.
Council, are you ready to proceed?
Memorize. we will memorize.
Council, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, my chief. Well, thank you very much. Well, before we get to the regulation, which is contained in the CI 94, which is let's say one of the laws that are specifically passed for this election, we need to know the background, because CI meaning a constitutional instrument, so it must be linked to a provision of the Constitution generally. So when you go to Article 63 of the Constitution, 1992, it says a person shall not be a candidate in a presidential election unless he is nominated for election as president by a document which A, is signed by him, and B, is signed by not less than 2 persons who are registered voters resident in the area of authority of each district assembly. C, is delivered to the Electoral Commission on or before the day appointed as nomination day in relation to the election. And D, designates a person to serve as vice president. So, pursuant to this, various CIs have been passed. Each year we have election generally. And so the latest is the CI 94. Now, when you look at the CI 94, I think in terms of what is before us and the issues that are being raised, the one that comes close for this purpose is 9, Regulation 9, as he mentioned. And Regulation 9 starts with 1. In fact, the subtitle is Nominated Candidate. Nominated Candidate. Whenever the nomination paper and the statutory declaration, so we mentioned nomination paper or document. Now they have added what we call statutory declaration. I'll just touch on that in brief. Whenever the nomination paper and the statutory declaration of a candidate are delivered and the deposit, so it also envisages the CI Act, a statutory declaration, which you are just affirming that all that you have said in that document is true to the best of your knowledge, ability, and belief sometimes, that it is true and correct. Then in addition, you have your payment. When that is delivered and or deposited with the EC, you stand nominated generally. Then it goes on to say that unless, that's why I say generally, then the exception, proof is given to the satisfaction of the returning officer of the candidate's death, withdrawal, or disqualification. None of the first two will apply to this situation we have. So the last one is disqualification. So when can we say that a person stands disqualified? You go to 2, that's Regulation 9(2). The returning officer shall inform a candidate that the candidate's nomination is invalid where A, the particulars of the candidate or the person subscribing to the nomination paper are not as required by law, or the nomination paper is not subscribed to as required by law. Then you go to the 3. The returning officer shall give the candidate an opportunity to make amendments. No, continuation with the 2. Shall give the candidate an opportunity to make amendments or any alteration necessary within the stipulated nomination period. Right, okay. We'll come to 3. So let's take it one by one.
Before we come to 3, let me take a quick break, because this is a whole kind of words. But when we come back, 2 people from each district, how many districts do you have?
216.
216, so that's what, 432 districts. I mean, can you go to the EC and say, look, I have 432 people, and I need you to vet them to make sure that, look, they are all cleared? I don't know how it works, but stay tuned. We're coming back. It's one of those shows that, if we had 2 more hours, it would have really, really helped. But just before the break, they've read these regulations, and once you've handed your nominations in, as lawyers said, you are deemed nominated until, you are dead or decide not to run again or disqualified. How do you get disqualified? The people who are signing up for you should be what the law says they are. But I mean, as I sit here, how was anyone in the studio or you at home going to know what I did 3, 4, 2 years ago, or even yesterday? Lawyer, so in order to clear your back, can you go to the EC and say, look, EC, these are my 432 guys, and check, make sure that they are all, spick and span before I bring them? Are you at will to do that?
Well, I don't know whether the EC has made provision for that, but ideally, if we had a proper data system, it should be possible for me to sit in my office and assess the EC's data externally and be able to know if the appropriate mechanisms are in place and facilities. I should be able to know that this particular person is probably registered. They are talking about 2 districts, but we know that the registration is actually done in constituencies. You understand? So there is a possibility of an overlap somehow. But then my main concern is with the issue of, even if, and let's not concentrate on PPP alone, there are other instances also given, 1 person signing for 2 people, or 1 person signing in 2 different districts, and so on. In
that case, if let's say the date you signed for me on the 1st and you signed for him on the 2nd, is mine valid and his not valid?
Well, even with that, the issue I have with it is, first, you see, there is this concept of visiting the sins of Adam on the next generation, which we are all suffering because of what Adam did many years ago. And in law, this concept has, I think, had some competing, if you like, propositions on it. Some hold the view that it is wrong to visit the sins of 1 person in terms of 1 person defaulting to comply with law, and externally or eventually another person also suffering for the default or the default or non-compliance by the other person. And so in the presidential election case, if you remember, one of the matters that the plaintiffs brought before the court was that the court should annul all votes that were recorded on pink sheets that were not signed, because the law was clear that the presiding officer, I hope that's the reference, shall sign the pink sheet. And the law shall is mandatory. or ought to be mandatory. I should choose my words carefully. But the majority of the Supreme Court argued, or held that if I remember correctly, you are looking at a citizen of Ghana who has complied with law to vote, cast his vote in accordance with law. So he went through the legal process and procedure and cast his vote. He complied with law. There's another person who should also comply with law following from there. That person failed to comply with the law. And some argue that it doesn't matter. Once he did not sign, then the process is not complete. There's not a full compliance with the law. But the majority carried the day, and so it was held that the votes that were contained in those impugned pin sheets will not be declared void. And so they were counted. Then I gave an example of a recent case. I'm very sure, well, I hope the comparison is correct. There's a recent case where a lawyer took a matter to court, and the other person who was sued caused a search to be conducted at the appropriate place, authority. And it was realized that the lawyer's license had not been renewed for the year, had expired. So the issue was whether or not he should annul everything he had done in court. The Supreme Court, at the first instance, majority said yes, which would mean that the client, whether unsuspecting client or not, would have had his case struck out. It was appealed. Well, it went over to review, and even more of the justices also said that yes. So your case is dismissed. The lawyer has some penalty contained in the law, Legal Profession Act, that he will suffer.
Even though you're not aware of it.
The question is, were you or were you not? In law, we have actual notice, implied notice, there may be constructive notice. Let me not bore people. But is it something that you ought to have known by the application of the minimum guidelines for competence or transparency, if you were lucky to have one, or diligence? That is one point. Or diligence. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse, but ignorance of a fact or the existence of a fact may be an excuse. All right. So when you match these two cases, my point is that for those who are saying that it is unfair to visit the sins, and some of them, if from the information EC have given us, what they did either relates to false representation, misrepresentation, or fraudulent misrepresentation, or pure fraud. You understand? And those ones, the question is, will it be fair to visit the sins on the candidate? And I'm saying that you have these two cases. Incidentally, when you have two cases, Supreme Court cases like that, you can choose one and argue your case based on it, unless the court departs from the other. And I hope I'm correct. So I want to look at what can be altered, the alteration and the amendment he mentioned in the 9.2. In my view, there are errors which we call errors that go to the root, and irregularities. For me, even if there's an error that goes to the root or irregularity, it may be amended or altered. But those matters that border on or relate to the commission of an offense, I do not envisage that, or I do not think that the lawmaker envisage that the EC, when in their view or opinion, that person has committed or allegedly committed an offense, you should condone it by doing the amendment. Rather, the argument will be the unfairness And that will also occasion miscarriage of justice on their part, that I didn't know you have not provided me sufficient data or afforded me sufficient opportunity, fair opportunity to deal with this matter. And that is where I come to. And that is a big problem for us. There's no reason why in the year of election, the EC cannot call, because some political parties even nominate their candidates 2 years before time. So you make these forms available, that anybody who thinks he or who desires to contest this year's election, the forms are ready. You can come for them. A date will be set later, stipulating the period within which you should have completed it. So that if you gave them, let's say, February to pick the forms, in June, you can say that between June 15th and, let's say, June 30th, we are going to collect or receive the forms. The person would have had sufficient time. But here we are, even registration, as we sit here, I'm not sure you've got your register. Have you? No. The last time, some got it a couple of days before the election. How is the person going to be able to cross-check? Meanwhile, there's a purpose for every procedure for election. And so it is the way so the question is, were they actually given a fair opportunity to comply with the law? Because it is not enough to give someone a law, but it is also equally important that you give the person a fair opportunity to comply with the law in view of all these surrounding circumstances. And so the 3 says that where the EC gives you the opportunity, but the opportunity should be within the stipulated period. There was an extension because of the court action, which I will say that nobody had control over. And so even within that period, you could see that it was even on the last day that most of these candidates even presented their forms. So another question also is that, had you not also contributed to the situation we have now?
Which last day are you talking about?
I'm talking about the 30th, before the court action.
Yeah, it was the 30th, yeah. So if you submitted your application on the 30th, what's wrong with that?
No, I'm not saying...
Because you used the last day, and I wanted to know what last day meant.
But there is a stipulated period.
29th and 30th.
There is a stipulated period within which you should submit.
Which is the 29th and the 30th.
And the law is saying that alteration or amendment should be within the stipulated period.
Sure, if you are made aware of.
It should be within the stipulated period.
Yes, if you are made aware of.
Yes, but then I expect that you'll be made aware of when you have submitted it.
Which was submitted on the 29th or the 30th.
You see, we are not concentrating on your matter. Let's discuss
all the others.
Let's discuss it generally.
This is general, yes. 29th, because others submitted theirs on the 30th. Others also on the 29th.
Yeah,
so within the stipulated period, any error found must be informed to the nominee, to the candidate.
Let me come to you, Dr. Zabru. I mean, there was one person who signed in 2 districts for you. That was the
allegedly.
Error. Allegedly.
Yes.
I mean, but it was the same name.
Yeah, Richard Asida, allegedly, with a different signature is what they are claiming.
I mean, did it not ring a bell that, hold on.
We know that Richard Asida, and we do know that he did not sign in 2 places. That's where
is he telling on truth?
He's not telling on truth. We know he did not sign in 2 places.
So does it mean there was an additional person?
Named by the same name?
Because if he signed only once, then it means that there is still one person who should have also signed in addition.
What is happening is that some information in the central region had the same voter ID that Richard Asida had in the voter region. So he is a voter in the voter region, Buem, but not in Lower Dentry, in the central region. And
they happen to have the same ID number?
the same district number. The same district number. So that is where the problem is.
So inputted wrongly, or those two districts have the same numbers?
Apparently, but with a different first letter. I think it's D for Dinchre and something else for B for Buemo or something.
The names?
Okay, but the digits were all the same.
But their names?
The names, I believe what happens is that when they enter the digital numbers, the name that pops up is Richard Asida, who is in the Volta region and not in the central region.
Let me clarify this for the viewers. So, in the Volta region, there's Mr. Asida,
yes,
and then the district is, let's say, what, D,
yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, that's right.
In the central region, there's Mr. Asida, but this time is D, C, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, yes, and that's where and the signatures are different. Okay, the signatures are different. They're not the same signatures on both sides.
An unfortunate coincidence?
Well, again, we don't know.
The other person's name, so that when
because they are both Richard Asida.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be two people called Richard Asida. I mean, it's possible. It's possible.
And even that, I think the writing of the name.
My uncle is Kwekusi Timisa. I am Kwekusi Timisa.
You are okay.
Yeah, I was Kwekusi Timisa before I became Nana Asakwa. You know, and I was even arrested by the police once for impersonating. Can you believe it? Yeah, even though I showed him my IDs and everything, he still arrested me. Now, so let's say, you know, I signed for you, Kwekusi Timisa. My uncle also signs for you, Kwekusi Timisa. But then we go further to have the same digits as in the district number.
Something has happened. Something happened for the numbers to be almost identical. Something must have happened. But what it is, we don't know. The key thing is that they had custody of all the 4 documents.
This one says,
all the while.
Good evening, Nana. On the lighter side, a free advice to Mr. Brew Hammond and his boss. They should open a petition book for their members. Maybe they will be pardoned by the EC chair. This is Kofi. Kofi. Maybe you have to sign a petition book and then we'll go from there.
Securely kept.
We'll take it securely kept too.
Is the EC being hard? Is the elimination by rough tactics and a few good ones have been, you know, taken? Because, I mean, admittedly, I got a text message to say the last guy who spoke was Odike, but no.
That's not Odike.
There's no Odike.
Odike came before.
Odike came before the last person. And, you know, I don't know who he is, and nobody around the table seems to know who, or we can't confirm who he is. But he's running for president. There's 2 months to go, and we don't know who this supposed presidential candidate is.
We have a political parties law that we believe that if the EC enforces, will be able to cut down on the number of participants in situations like this. Why the EC is not enforcing the political parties law beats me, because I don't seem to understand why for all these years, since 92 or since 93 really, when it came into force, that the EC, Afarijan, all the 6 times that he presided over the election, never enforced the political parties law. It just doesn't make sense. Why are we skirting around the political parties law and its requirements and going after other things? If the goal is to reduce the number
does it mean
of participants.
Afarijan was a bit lenient and, you know, you guys got spoiled?
No, Afarijan personally, you know, in one of the confrontations with him about the need to enforce the law, said that if he enforced the law, no party would qualify. That's what I'm not saying this as a hearsay, but as coming from him direct, that if he enforced the law, that no one would qualify. Well, and I believe that now many have not conformed. One of the provisions in the political parties law is for the parties to submit their financial statements yearly. Now, if we ask this question, NPP won't qualify. Neither would NDC, because they have not complied with the law for so many years. not just one aberration, but consistently. That is what we need to enforce.
But there's a difficulty with that because
well, then let's amend the law.
A person doesn't have to be a member of a political party to stand for elections in this country.
You can be as an independent candidate.
Yes, and that is not a requirement. In fact, the Constitution spells out the requirements, what we call the qualification requirements and the eligibility requirement. It doesn't include whether or not you are a member of a political party and whether the political party has filed all their tax returns and things like that. The qualifications are clear. And if you want to even go by the political party law, then some people will just decide to still go independent. There is a problem with the quality of people in terms of, knowledge and things like that who qualify. But the Constitution just states, in the case of a president under Article 62, once the person is a Ghanaian by birth, that one is state of birth.
Sound mind.
Of sound mind is 40 years.
40 years.
Be someone who can be nominated and stand for elections as a member of parliament. There's no addition. That's why I even have an issue with the payment of the money. Because when I comply with all the requirements, and I'm looking at even the Presidential Election Act as well, and you ask me, yes, you've complied with the qualification and the eligibility criteria. Where is your 50,000? And I say, I don't have 50,000. I'm disqualified. But the Constitution doesn't provide for that. And so, where...
but then the Constitution doesn't give you all the laws as you taught me the other time. So sometimes the Constitution gives you the spirit, and then you go and then add bits and pieces, to it.
But not to the extent that provision will seek to override the Constitution itself. Because I think that once a person meets the qualification criteria under 62 and 94, and also the nomination criteria under 63, which doesn't mention money, you cannot disqualify me. Because then, in fact, that portion of the CI...
That's what IPP was
I support them. In terms of the CI, that provision of the CI, I believe, is inconsistent with the Constitution. And also the act of taking the money can also constitute a non-constitutional act. To the extent that it becomes a condition precedent for a person to become a president. I think we have to look at it once more. But and I think some were even disqualified because they even came late. The EC's own, the CI, says that when the date is fixed to present this document, the day commences at 9 o'clock up to 12, I think, and then from 2 to 5. At 12 o'clock, they said you can't beyond 12. No, on this day. I think that
for the
they fix it at 12
o'clock. Yes.
But the law says up to 5. Ends at 12, break or whatever, give them a respite, and then you start from 2 to 5. So those they applied the time against. I think they can also have a recourse to the law. Again, the question is even whether the EC can just by an announcement extend the period. Because the period would have ended on the 30th.
On the 30th,
right?
yes.
There was a court action, yes. Maybe in law it's just through no fault of anybody. It's act of God or force majeure and so on. So if there has been the need to do that extension. Then on that day, at least, on that day, you should make sure that you comply with the end time That is the 5 o'clock.
The 5 o'clock.
How time flies. And this one from Shipman Atones says, Nana, I think the candidates like Dr. Indum and Nana Kunadu deserve a second chance, and the EC must reconsider them. Ghana deserves a better, and change is a must to make Ghana work again. So I think the two of you, Nana Kunadu and the PPP, are what people are most sympathetic. Well. And the PNC. Good evening, and I greeting to your panel. If there are any digital errors in any form and shape, EC should be questioned as I trace back to the election petition proceedings. Well, I'll give you the last word, Dr. Brew.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. I sincerely believe that we need to be given an opportunity to make the amendments and alter to cure the invalid condition. And we believe that when we do, there will be no need to go to the courts to try and get anything resolved there. I think it's a procedural matter that ought to be resolved peacefully. It's been done before by Dr. Afarijan, giving the political parties that window to make amendments. If there is a fraudulent position taken by the EC, I think they can proceed with that case. If ASIDA has done anything, we should be able to go to court on that.
Us, but thank you too for watching. And as usual, my tops are, or my shirts are supplied by Tanti's Fashion, and you can reach them on 024 366 2001. 024 366 2001. Give them a call and order yourself a nice shirt for yourself. Thank you very much, lawyer. Looking very dapper. And welcome to the show. Tomorrow we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you.